What's up, y'all? Breezy here, and this is Down the Rabbit Hole. This is a very sad episode because this is episode 206, but it's also the final episode because, as you notice, I haven't done an episode in a very long time. And I think after that, there needs to be a final episode, there needs to be closure, so we are making this one the final episode. It's not because I haven't lost interest, it's just because I have so many other projects going on that it's just not fair to y'all. But I do appreciate y'all a lot. But if you are new here, please hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications. Also, please subscribe. This is my YouTube channel for crying out loud as well, Breezyville. So, um, today we're going to be talking about something that I discovered while watching the originals. And yes, I am a Klaus girl, but I also have a cold too. Don't judge me. We all have our preference. But me and my nosy curious self, when I came across this topic, I had to look it up. I'm guilty. If I find something that interests me, I like to look it up, find research on it. Now, we all know New Orleans is one of the oldest cities and haunted cities in the U.S. It also has so much history to it that there is such a thing called the Casket Girls. And you're probably wondering, what the hell am I talking about? Well, this was during the 17th century, and it can also be known as the Pelican Girls. And this is basically when a woman was brought from France to the French colonies of Louisiana to marry. And the name of the women came from a small chest known as caskets, and in which they carried their clothes. So what is the history behind this? Well, the French policy of sending young women was known as king's daughters to the colonies for marriage, goes back all the way to the 17th century. And these young women were sent to Canada, Louisiana, and the French West Indies. Contrary to the Fils de la Roy program in New France, many of the casket girls were prostituted in France and admitted to a mental health hospital there because of their occupation. And women then sent directly to New Orleans, and the first set of women to came to New Orleans in 1720. After being shipped over to the prison camp La Mutaine, Joan de Jean, who wrote the book, Mutinous Women theorizes that these women were falsely accused of the crimes due to corruption in France. And during their journey, they were not doing well and taken care of. And upon their arrival in Louisiana, many appeared to have bloodshot eyes and leading to the term vampire girls in addition to the casket girls. Later women, called the correction girls, were supplied to the colonists by ranking the streets of Paris for undesirables or emptying the house of corrections. France also sent women convicted along with the debtors' husbands. In 1719, deported 209 felons who were of a character to be sent to the French settlement of Louisiana. Now, the women were sent to the West Indies were often from poor houses in France, but reputed to be former prostitutes as La Secretaire. In 1713 and again in 1743, the authorities of Saint Dominique complained that Paris sent their settlers unsuitable former prostitutes as wives, and the practice was discontinued in the mid 18th century. Now, the Casket girls, however, were conspicuous at best by reason of their virtue, and they were recruited from the church charitable institutions. Excuse me. And although poor, was guaranteed to be virgins. It later became a matter of pride on the Gulf Coast that had shown descent from them, and the first Casket girl to reach Mobile was in 1704. Biloxi, Mississippi, 1719, and New Orleans in 1728. Altogether, there were about 23 Pelican girls, give or take, to arrive on Massacre Island in late July, and then took a shallow draft of boots onto Mobile Bay. Um, weighing the anchor on August 1st, 1704, and they sailed it from France of that year of the ship La Pelican, and the stop in Cuba had resulted in many of the crew and young women receiving mosquito bites, thus becoming infected with yellow fever. Two of the young women would die upon the arrival of the epidemic spread throughout the fort and throughout the adventurer Henri de Tonty. And disease notwithstanding, of these young women were married to men of their choosing within a month. All the girls were between 14 and 19. That's just really sick, though, in general. Seriously. Um, but unhappy with their husbands, and much of their time in the woods, not building their new homes and planting, um, it became known as the Petticoat Rebellion. And until they provided a roof and food, they refused bed and board, and the men eventually came around. I wonder why. Now, historian Joan Martin maintains that this little documentation that Casket girls considered among the Louisiana of white French Creoles was sent to Louisiana. And Dr. Marsha Zug would argue that there was, in fact, no evidence to support the fact that these women existed as such. Now, the Ursuline order of nuns supposedly chaperoned the Casket girls until they were married, but the um, of nuns supposedly order of nuns supposedly chaperoned these girls until they were married, but the order has denied this. And Martin has suggested that this was a myth and that interracial marriages occurred in the beginning of in the encounter among Europeans with Native Americans and Africans, and some of them wrote about Creole families who had white ancestors during the colonial period who were African and multiracial and were descendants of married white over generations. So you're probably wondering, what is the cultural impact it has on this? Well, for starters, it inspired Victor Herbert's right Naughty Marietta, which was turned into a musical. In 1947, there was a movie called The Fox of the Harrow with Maureen Sullivan, and there was a French novel that was even wrote by W. Maureen Miller. Is about Madeline, a young French girl who was sponsored by a covenant and sent to Louisiana to become a bride of a pioneering colonist. Real quick though, while I'm thinking about it, does anybody remember Madeline like the series? That just made me think of that. I don't know why. But I remember that clearly though. But there's also in the Vampire Diaries an episode, as I mentioned earlier, in season 10 that talks about, well, it's not season 10. Seriously, Google, get your stuff right, right? But there was an episode in the originals where it talked about the Casket Girls, and they were mentioned in meeting in New Orleans gentlemen who spoke only French. It's also been an inspiration, title, part of the plot of the Casket Girls in a young adult novel. So, now let's talk about Mardi Gras for a second. We've got to talk about that. So, how does this tie into Mardi Gras? Well, on New Year's Day 2021, a group of women in Mobile, Alabama formed the Pelican Girls as a homage to the first Casket girls to arrive on the Gulf Coast, La Pelican in summer of 1704. And the ladies were also marching society during the 18th century. And their membership is limited to 23 and each adopt the name of the original 23 girls. They currently participate in the Massacre Island Secret Society Parade on Dolphin Island and the Joe Kane procession in Mobile. I now have a reason to go to Mardi Gras. Just kidding, you'll never see me go in Mardi Gras. But that is it for our final episode. Thank you all again. But please stay tuned for my other Breezyville projects that I have coming out. You don't know how much it means to me to have y'all.